And it's easy as that to make your own super bright and colorful stain. I absolutely love any type of tip, trick, or jig that will make my shop life more productive. And I share a lot of these during my videos, but there are a ton that I just haven't gotten to yet. So this video is going to be packed with some of my favorite tips and tricks. So let's dive into it. So with this first tip, I'm going to be showing you how to get rid of planar snipe indefinitely. And for those of you that are not quite sure exactly what planar snipe is, it looks something like this. And what causes this in most cases is that your outfeed table isn't adjusted perfectly level with the bed, or it's simply not long enough to support the material. As the end of your board gets past your front roller, if your bed's not level, then the weight of the end of your material will actually cause it to kick up into your planer blades, and leaving you with the choice of either cutting this material off and wasting it, or replaning all of your material. You can actually see what's causing the issue with mine, and that's the outfeed table being loose. It's just an older planer, and these lock pins don't lock anymore. I can get it to where it's mostly level, but it still has a ton of give. So let me show you something that is a quick and easy way to fix this, and it's also going to make for a much better planer station. So what I want to do is to get rid of the infeed and outfeed wings. In my opinion, they're just way too flimsy for these smaller planers because they are designed to fold up so you can store it away. And another issue with these outfeed tables is that they are simply not long enough. So we're going to go ahead and fix that as well. So with those off, I'm going to make a new infeed and outfeed. Since the max width of this planer is 13 inches, I'm going to cut a board that is 13 inches wide by 48 inches long. Then I'm just going to slide my board into place and then measure it so that it has 2 foot of outfeed. Having the longer outfeed will provide the support that it needs to prevent snipe. Once that's in place, I'm just going to measure the distance from the table that it's sitting on to the bottom of my board. In this case, it's 2 11/16. Now I'm just going to cut some supports for both sides. Now with my braces cut using the same material, I'm just going to slide these into place. I'm going to put a couple on the outfeed side and then one on the infeed side. The one that I'll install on the infeed side, we'll make sure that it's up against our planer table. That way we can't push this thing around. So with our supports in place, I'll just add a few screws to each one. Now with the extended outfeed table, I don't have to worry about snipe or racing around the planer to catch a small board before it drops. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to be showing you how to make a problem-solving jig. And in the process, I'll be showing you a tip within a tip within a jig. So 3 tips in a jig. Let me just show you. So a buddy of mine was over not too long ago working on a project and was asking me how to find the center of a circle. So I showed him these several different ways that you can do that. The most popular way of using your square and marking your corners. I even pulled out the compass and got into a little geometry. Well, after that, he just looked at me and said, there's got to be an easier way. And then I remembered an old jig that I used to make for finding the center of a circle. Let me show you how to make one, and even one that I improved on. So to start off with our jig, you'll need 3 pieces of scrap that are cut at 45 degrees on one end. We're going to take 2 of these 45s and connect them. Now comes our first tip within a tip. Whenever you're going to be nailing any type of thin or small material, we want to keep our fingers as far away from the nailer as possible. And we can do that with a little bit of painter's tape. Once you have 2 of your 45s glued up, let's go ahead and attach our last one on top, aligning the edge up with our 45-degree angle from one of our boards. And now for the tip within a tip within a tip. Have you ever been blasted in the face with air while using a nail gun? This little black thing that moves on the back, that determines which way that the air is being pushed. So if you're putting in some nails and get blasted in the face with some air, just give it a little turn. Now with your center finding jig made, all that you have to do is place your circle on the inside, trace one line and then a second line anywhere. Wherever they intersect is going to be the center of your circle. And if your circle is larger than your jig, you just make your starter line and then extend it out past the center. So after I made the first one of these, I was thinking this is actually a really cool jig and super handy, but it's kind of funky looking, big and cumbersome. And if you're trying to find the center of material that is a little bit thinner, then you actually have to hold this into place. So I came up with what I think is a pretty cool solution for this jig, and it's this guy. Okay, so check this out. Again, I really like this jig, but I wanted something smaller that I could just hang and pull out whenever I needed it. And I came up with this using my logo. So the way that I made this was to use part of my logo to recreate the 45-degree connecting points. And it's going to be the mustache part. I double layered these, removed the material in the middle, and came up with this. You just make sure that the mustache is up against your circle, draw a line across, draw a second line across, and you have perfect center. This little jig is super fast, super easy, and you only need 2 marks to find center. Another cool thing that I like about this design is whenever you're done with it, you can just snap it back into its wall plate. Okay, so essentially both of these do the exact same thing. You can easily make one of these out of scrap, or if you would like one of these Center Finder Ultra 2000, okay, I really don't know the name of it. To center finder. But if you'd like to have one of these, check out my website. I'm going to make sure to throw some of these in my shop. So another thing that we all have issues with is drawing consistent arches. Let me show you how to fix that with some scrap wood and just a little piece of chain. I've actually shown something similar to this in a previous video by using tape. But let's say that we want something that is adjustable. I'm just going to take a scrap piece of thin wood. I'm going to use a jigsaw to put a small notch on each end. And now comes the chain. And this is super cheap chain that typically comes with your garage lighting. If you don't have something like this, you can just use a rope with some knots in it. I'm just going to feed this into my notch sideways. That way it catches. Then we'll do the same thing for the opposite side. The more lengths that you decide to go down, the greater the arch is going to be. And now you can use this as a traceable guide whenever you're creating anything with an arch. And the great thing about something like this is, again, it's adjustable. So if you wanted your arches a little smaller, just bring out some more chain. And if all else fails, you can use it as a bow. So this next one has to do with Shaoshugiban or Shoshugiban or whatever it is, the Japanese wood burning technique. Let me show you a super cheap and easy way to get crazy colors with Shaoshugiban. Shaoshugiban? Shishuban. You know what I mean? Okay, so we all know that we start off by torching the wood. And just an FYI to people out there, this is not it. That's not Shaoshugiban or Shoshugiban or whatever. That is just lightly torching the wood to add a little bit of brown to it. I do not like this look. I see it all the time, and it's not how it's supposed to be done. Let's get back to it. So the whole purpose behind this technique is to actually burn these softwoods out. So you need a deep char on your material so that you can scrape out the softwoods. So we're not just lightly toasting a marshmallow here. We are actually burning the surface of this thing. All right, so this is the look that we're going for. You can see it's actually cracking there. And depending on how big of a project that you're doing, I'm going to use this little wire brush, remove these softwoods that I just burned, then we'll get to the cool coloring. So whenever you're done, you should be able to feel the deep grooves of where the softwood used to be. Okay, so for this next part, we are going to be using the cheapest paint alive. These are like these 50-cent paints that you can still pick up at Walmart or wherever, but they are super bright. So these are actually a water-based acrylic paint, but they are super thick. So let's get these thinned down just a bit, and then we'll add them to our board. So you want your paint to be thinned down to a stain consistency. And that's essentially what you're doing. You are making your own stain. Once you get it thinned down pretty well, just add it to your board. I'm using a small brush because this is just an example. But if you had a large project that you wanted to do, you could mix up as big of a batch of this as you would like. So now I'm going to let that side sit for just a minute. So basically by thinning down the paint and making your own stain, you're allowing this to get into the softwoods that are left. Whenever you wipe it off, it'll only be left in the grains of the softwood, giving it a super cool look. And it's easy as that to make your own super bright and colorful stain. This next little tip actually stemmed from a pet peeve of mine. And that is losing these little chuck keys or wrenches that may come with any type of corded tool. So the easiest fix for that is as soon as you take your tool out of the box, I mean like within 5 minutes, that's pretty much all the time that you have. If you wait more than 5 minutes, this thing will disappear and never be found again, I promise. No clue where they go. It's kind of like the sock thing, you know. But as soon as you take it out of the box, go to the end of your cord and go up about 10 inches. Put that baby right in line and then tape it to it. Tape one side and then you tape the other side. Get it on there nice and tight. That way the little key thieves have a hard time getting it off. And trust me, they'll do it. So now with your key or your wrench, whatever you want to call it, actually attached to your drill, you're not going to lose it. Theoretically, I've lost some. But to use it, you can actually use it with it in place. You don't have to take this thing off every time. Just do your thing. Something as simple as this is going to save you a lot of headache, or, you know, using 2 screwdrivers to tighten this thing up and 2 screwdrivers to loosen it up. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I do the same thing with Allen wrenches whenever they come with a tool. So since this lockdown can be removed with just this single Allen wrench, with it being on my cord, I'm always ready. And then for the biggie. No, really, it's a biggie. It's a big chuck wrench. So this is going to be for the drill press. I cannot stand looking around my shop for something like this, so this is what I do. Magnet with a hole in it. Take a piece of string, tie a knot on the back. Run the string through your rope, just like that. Next I'm just going to tie a loop onto the end of my rope, like so. Feed this back through, and slide this over my chuck key. Tighten it up, pull them apart. Now with my magnetized little holder, I always know where my chuck key's at. So I can use it whenever I get done, just slide it right back in, and it's there for next time. Another thing is if you have a powerful enough magnet, you won't even need this piece of rope. But what I've found with using magnets on any type of tool that kind of vibrates is eventually it's going to slide off. So I like doing it this way. It's up to you. So this next one is actually one of my favorite things that I've learned over the years. I learned this several years back, but I cannot tell you how much time that I wasted before that just by not knowing this. And this has to do with a pair of wire strippers. So these little babies have a built-in tool that I can almost guarantee that you have needed at some point, and it has nothing to do with electricity. So what is the problem that these wire strippers solve? Well, that has to do with cabinet knobs, handles, coat hooks, really anything that comes with a machine screw. It never fails, just like this small button pull, that the machine screw that they send with this is crazy long. So I've set this board up to replicate a drawer front or whatever that you're attaching this to. We slide our machine screw in from the inside. We go to tighten this baby down, and yeah, the machine screw's too long. And then you start freaking out and digging through all your junk drawers and things like that, looking for the perfect length machine screw, or you make a special trip to the store just to buy the right length. Well, let me show you a little something that's going to save you that trouble. So if you notice on the front of these wire strippers, we have two threaded holes. One says 8/32, one says 10/32. And that just happens to be the size of a machine screw. So that's all that you have to do is get the threaded hole lined up with the opposite side. And then whatever length that you want to cut off, screw it until that much is sticking out of the top. And we're just going to give it a squeeze. And bam. All right, so I know what you may be thinking. You're like, okay, you've stripped out your machine screw now. The threads are going to be off and you'll never get that to thread back in. Well, since these holes were threaded to begin with, as you back the screw out, it actually threads the tip back to match the others. And now with no more freaking out, running around, digging through junk drawers, calling the neighbors, making special trips to Walmart or however, you have an exact fit machine screw for what you need. Okay, so for this next tip, it's going to be for the dreaded stripped out screw. You can use this for any type of stripped out screw. I'm going to give this example with a pocket hole because I strip these screws out all the time by using an impact driver whenever I should be using a drill. So let me show you how to fix a screw that you may got a little carried away with. Okay, so that is the sound that you do not want to hear. You know that you have stripped this hole out and this screw is pretty much useless. Let's fix that. I'm going to start off by removing my screw. And if you already have a second one in like this one, just loosen it. So now I have my stripped out screw hole. I'm just going to take a little CA glue and drop it right down into that hole. Sometimes it forms an air pocket. And I'll just use a brad nail to pop that. And I'll just add my glue and push it down with my brad nail. We'll do that a few times and then wipe up any glue that may still be on the top. Give it a little spray with the activator. We'll get our board back into place and lined up. The board itself is not glued down. We have just built back up our stripped out hole. And that is the sound that we want. The screw is no longer turning and the board is securely fastened. All right, so this next one has to do with push blocks. So I have several sets of these just laying around the shop, whether you're using them on the joiner or the table saw. If you don't have a set of these, they're dirt cheap. Pick up a set. I'm going to show you a little minor modification that I like to do on just one of these. Okay, so we know how push blocks work. They protect our hands and fingers from blades. The only bad thing about push blocks is sometimes they slip while you're trying to apply downward force and forward force. So here's a little trick that I learned a while back to help to keep these things from slipping and also to help you to feed your material through your machine. So I'm going to take the push block that I'm going to be using for my backhand. Then I'm going to take a piece of scrap wood, preferably a hardwood of some kind, about a 1/2 inch thick. I'm going to set it right on top of this foam that kind of helps to grab that board. Then I'm just going to make a cut right on the edge. Now with our foam cut on that end, we're just going to peel off that little piece. And you'll have a little bit of glue residue. You scrape that off. Okay, so now with that cleaned up, I'm just going to add a little CA glue here. And then on my wooden block, I'm going to spread a little bit of activator. And this is not going to be what actually keeping this on there. In case you're wondering, there's another step. Just going to put this into place, and it's going to look something like this. So now you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Now, just to make sure that this doesn't come off, because the CA glue was just to hold this into place until I could pre-drill. I'm going to pre-drill down through my plastic and into my oak. And then after pre-drilling, I'm going to install a couple of 3/4 inch screws. Just like that. Now you have a push block that can actually grip the edge of the wood to help you feed it through. So this next one was actually left in the comments of the last tips and tricks video. If you haven't seen it, make sure to check that out. So this super awesome tip was submitted by Judy L761. So she noticed in the previous video where I was talking about using the closed cell foam to make cuts with circular saw or jigsaw, that my pieces were extremely long and not everyone has the space for a full sheet or even one that's this long. So Judy's suggestion was to simply cut this material in half. And then once you have it cut, bring out the duct tape and throw a few pieces over your cut on one side. This is going to allow you to fold this in half, save a ton of space. And then whenever you need it, you can pull it out and just open it up. This is going to allow you to still be able to utilize the full length, but now you can fold this in half and store it away, taking up half the space. So thanks for that tip, Judy. And if anyone else out there has any tips or tricks that they would like to share with the rest of the community, make sure to throw those into the comments. Till next time, guys, we'll see you.